Hello everybody and welcome to this playthrough for Pro and Expert Division with various type of win for the Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup here in Golf Clash the game. The video is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic, and before we start don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also visit golfclashtommy.com for more Golf Clash related content for free. You can also get the ultimate tournament and tour text guides by going to patreon.com/golfclashtommy. Link to Patreon is directly in the description down below. You can find all the holes of the Vineyard Acres on tour number 8, the Mountain Tour in Golf Clash the game. So make sure you go there and practice if you do want to get a couple of holes before the tournament starts. Listen and also look at the info box. Obviously the info box is not going to be able to talk, but I will be able to use that as a reference when we're talking through the holes. And I'm using the elevation that I play with myself personally. The elevation might not suit what you are playing with, and that's why the beauty with the elevation is it's a floating number, which means that you can use a different elevation but get the same type of outcome. It all depends on the adjustment. But for my adjustment, elevations in the info boxes are the ones that I'm playing with. Then the ball and the clubs that I do feel is going to be the ones that is the more valuable ones to use on that specific hole. And once again, you don't have to use them, but you can at least make sure to listen and understand why I would suggest them, because picking the correct clubs and ball is key when becoming a good tournament player. Last but not least, can we get this video up to 100 thumbs up? That would be amazing and that I would be forever grateful. Now let's focus and go to hole number 1. For hole number 1, we're going to start by using the driver that gives us the most distance and topspin. And here, I do think I make a little mistake by playing with a power 1 ball instead of playing with at least a power 2 ball. But with a headwind, I will most likely go towards the Kingmaker, so I don't have to do not have to struggle with overpower and stuff like that. Maximum distance with a 20% over adjustment, max topspin, max side spin, and then half a ball of curl outside the adjustment range to the right. And then obviously we do need to apply the overpower if we do adjust into overpower. The only plan for me here with a headwind is to bounce before the rough and get myself safely down the fairway. And from this position you can see already there that the pin stands on a higher point than where we are, which means that we're going to play uphill for the second shot. So pretty weird elevations here where we start with 20% over adjustment due to the massive downhill approach for the drive, and then we're gonna play an uphill adjustment minus 10% for the second shot. One thing to also have in mind with the drive, that if we do have a tailwind here in any form, we are going to push it for the green by using overpower, or if we do have a straight tailwind, we don't need to use any overpower whatsoever. It's still going to be 20% in terms of elevation, but we're obviously going to push the drive a little bit harder and get ourselves to once again around the green area, because just getting it around the green area is going to be a simple wedge, and then we're gonna have the eagle locked in a freaking box. Second shot, here I go by the thorn. There is a couple of bumpy places, and therefore I'm going to rely on the dunk in a situation like this. But that's completely obviously up to you. But as you can see, and if you have watched my latest tutorial of how to become a better player when it comes to using the dunk, then you can see that we have the backspin. Even if we miss the hole or hit the pin, we have no problem to stay on the green, or as worst case scenario being on the fringe. But the rough, there is no obstacle in any means now. But we adjust for the back end of the cup with the blue arrows. Then it's very important that we are centered into the adjustment range, so we are not having an underliberally overpower or underpower. And then obviously we're looking for the eagle. In my opinion, no matter what type of win this is going to be, if you're going to have any chance of winning the tournament, or like being a winning player, if we're looking at it in tour play based, then you're going to have to make eagle more times than not here on hole number 1. For hole number 2, we're going to play a tough par 3 in my opinion. I'm going to go with either the sniper or the guardian here, and the thing that's going to make the difference for me is if I have the sniper level 8 or above. If I do have a sniper level 7 or below, I will be going to the guardian regardless of what level I do have the guardian in, because here we do want to play with backspin, using the red ring by the bottom of the rough, and then we're going to bounce ourselves up towards the pin. Maximum distance with a 20% over adjustment is what we are going to have to go here, and this is going to be a very inconsistent par 3, and the reason for that is all the bumpy parts on the first fairway and then when we come up to the green. In the end, we get this one very close, which I'm very satisfied with, but there is no way of saying that this is going to be a consistent and possible hole, not possible, it's always going to be, but consistent hole in one all the time. But once again, key tips here: 20% over adjustment, kingmaker ball to reduce the wind. Obviously any other type of wind resistance ball is highly valuable, sniper, and then or the guardian as for the clubs, because we do value backspin. So for hole number 3, ladies and gentlemen, we want to play with a ball that is minimum power 3. And we are going to try to cross over the water, but make no mistake, if you do have a crosswind or a headwind, especially headwind, this shot is going to be difficult. But once we do have a tailwind, crosswind coming left to right, the shot is not going to be that hard. We do aim with 2 to 3 bars of topspin, max side spin right. A side spin 3 ball is crucial in my opinion to help the ball to bounce more right, because if we don't have enough side spin, or for that matter curl, we will roll into the rough on the top left, and that's going to take away the opportunity for an eagle pretty drastically. 10% over adjustment, maximum distance numbers. And I do want to add that I would recommend you to play with the Apocalypse as a driver if you do have any. Otherwise you go with the other club that gives you distance combined with curl. XMI level 8 is not the worst club to play with, as it does have a decent amount of curl, but at the same time, guys, playing with Apocalypse will give ourselves curl from the start and will already give us distance from the start as well, because let's just face it, if we do have a wind coming right to left, we do need to use a lot of curl. And if we do not then have a club with curl, we're going to push ourselves out to the left, and then we're going to struggle making making both the eagle, but especially kind of losing the attempt for an albatross. So many different type of ways of attacking the drive, but I do think once again the important lesson there is to go with distance and curl. Don't do like our opponent is doing. If we do want to use the backspin shot, go for the back end of the green. There is a funnel there, tough to catch if you haven't done it before, but there is a funnel there that will take you down towards the pin. But don't try to use the beginning of the green with backspin, because then you will most likely fall back down again if you are unlucky. Now I'm going to go for a rough bump, and here I'm using 1.5 bar topspin with the Goliath. It's very important for me here when we do have any form of tailwind to actually make sure that the ball guideline go through the hole, because the thing that's going to happen here now is that I'm going to adjust from a higher point to a lower point, and therefore I will lose distance. And therefore the topspin is going to be so required, because otherwise I won't be having the speed to roll up towards the pin, and then will fall short and roll back into the rough again. And then that shot is going to obviously be pressure. Perfect ball would have most likely been very close or in the hole. This is, in my opinion, the absolute best chance making an albatross of any of the par 5s of the Vineyard Acres. No elevation for the second shot. So for hole number 4, we're going to have a very similar type of way as we do have on hole number 2, the par 3. Here we play with a 20% over adjustment. A wind ball is going to be not required obviously, but it's valuable. Here I'm using the Goliath in complete max distance, and a very, very important lesson is to play with the Goliath even though it might not be your favorite long iron. Reason for that is because the Grizzly, the Saturn, Backbone, and all clubs except for the B52 will bring you in between clubs in tailwind, and therefore going to make it very, very difficult to get any sort of chance if that's going to be the case. Adjust max plus 20, and we're gonna get this one very close to green, very close to the pin more times than not. Let's pretend we do have a crosswind, or we do have any form of headwind. I would strongly recommend you to play with a wood club instead. Sniper level 9 plus, or the Guardian as a wood club to give yourself the backspin aiming directly at the pin. Obviously, we will not be playing max distance numbers if we do play with a wood club, as we will be more in minimum distance. But I would recommend you to play at least medium distance if you do have a crosswind to compensate for the wind push. If we do have any other form of wind that is not a direct crosswind, then I would play minimum distance with a 20% over adjustment. So once again, we see the same type of shot, but it's better to see it twice than not see it at all. For hole number 5, we're going to play a very tough par 5, which is going to be required a lot of distance. Not so much for the drive, but especially for the second shot. First and foremost, we're going to use somewhere between 3 to 4 bars of backspin for the drive. We start with 3 due to a little tailwind, stretch out into max, and then we're going to adjust our shot. 10% over adjustment. Maximum distance numbers. We do adjust, and you can see that we're going to need a little bit of overpower, and we're gonna go half a ball of curl, and then we're obviously gonna add that little overpower that is needed. Obviously, the overpower is going to be different depending on what type of level, and therefore what type of power you have on your club, or for that matter, if you have a different type of driver that gives you a different type of distance. 376 yards, and you can see that the only plan for us here is to transportate ourselves to the end of the fairway. And now we need to have one other thing in mind when we're playing this drive. That is, the further right we are with the drive, the longer we're gonna be from the hole. So we do need to try to be as close to the rough on the left hand side without obviously going into the rough, because going into the rough you cannot reach for the second shot. But if we are close to the rough on the left, or even in the center of the fairway, then we will be able to reach for the green in 2. This is if you do make a very good drive, then you will be having a kind of a semi chance for an albatross here. We are going to have to play with the big dog or with the cataclysm, because we do need distance. 1.5 bar backspin is what I'm using here. 1 bar would be better. And you can see that a stretch out, we are approximately 2 rings into overpower. Then you can do 2 ways. Either you adjust and then push up 2 rings, or you push up and then you adjust from overpower position. We do adjust without any form of elevation, and generally my only goal here is to get the ball to green. I'm not really focused on getting an albatross. If it happens, it happens. But for me, it's more important to secure the eagle here, and the ball is rolling very nicely. If we would be having less backspin, we never know what's gonna happen. One little thing to add as well for the second shot is that if you do make a bad drive, you are very, very far to the right after the drive, so it means that you have to go with a very, very hard shot towards the pin. Then you can lay up short from rough, and then you have a wedge, or you do have a short iron towards the pin for, once again, a possible eagle. For hole number 7, we're going to start with the quarterback or the rock preferably, and we're going to try to get the ball up on the right hand side. Even though you do have a tailwind here, I would strongly advise you to not try to go for green, because there is a couple of dead bounces there by the water, which will get you into the water, and in a best case scenario you will maybe be in the rough close to the green. And do we want to gamble with that? I don't think so. 10% over adjustment for the drive. If you do have a headwind, I would advise you to play power 3 ball and the rock instead of using the quarterback as I'm doing here, and a power 1 ball. But with crosswind or a tailwind, I think the quarterback and a power 1 ball, or the rock for that matter, combined with a power 1 ball will be a good suggestion here to use. Because once again, we're playing on a fairway where a great left or a great right is going to most likely be danger with lower level accuracy clubs. Meaning an extra mile or a lower level Thor's hammer or something like that, even a lower level Apocalypse, will obviously, it will have the distance and stuff like that, but it will not have the accuracy, and then a great ball might be danger. But quarterback and the rock have enough distance here for this shot, and therefore those two will be a perfect setup here for ourselves. Second shot, we're playing with the sniper. And now we do need to have two things in mind. First, if we do go with our drive up to a point where we're not rolling up the hill, then we're going to play an under adjustment of 10%. If we would roll up completely up on the hill, then we're actually going to play that one without elevation instead, because there is going to be an elevation difference there. 3 bars of backspin ball guideline short of pin when we do have tailwind, if we do have a crosswind ball guideline to the hole, and with a headwind ball guideline slightly through the hole. Adjust minus 10% because now you can see we're not on top of that little hill, which means that we're gonna play that shot under adjusted instead. Ball rolls very nicely towards the pin. In the end though, we have a very close one for an eagle, and I do believe hole 6 here will be a hole where people will be dropping a couple of eagles here and there. For the final of the par 3s here of the Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup, we go with hole 7. Half of the red ring inside the rough, 5 bars of backspin. And here I want us to honestly aim directly at the hole and then compensate with a better adjustment. But in this case, I'm using a slight offset to the left of the pin, using 5.2 backspin. And as I do have a little tailwind here with me, that's why I'm adding a little bit more backspin to be a little bit short of pin in terms of being pin high or not. Adjust, we do with a 10% over adjustment, and we play medium distance club. And that's going to be very close to a 1-to-1 adjustment. Bounce on the fairway, and here you can see that we should have kept the 5 bars of backspin, and we're just very close making an hole-in-one. One thing that I will have to say as well when it comes to this par 3 is that if you do not have at least 4 bars of backspin, then I would strongly advise you to go over to the Guardian. Sure, the ball guideline with the sniper is awesome, but if we do not have the backspin to play with the sniper as a club, then we will most likely be struggling being in between clubs and stuff like that, and therefore it's then better to go with the backswing with the Guardian, and then might not have the best of the best ball guideline, but we will not be having to struggle with the in-between club situation. Navigator ball or any other type of ball that will reduce the wind. If we do have a wind coming right to left, it would be good to have at least side spin too, just a little tip here in the end. But we will see what we do have as wind. In the end though, it will be an okay chance for making an hole-in-one. For hole number 8, we're going to play a tough par 4, which both require curl for the drive, but then also distance for the second shot. We're aiming very close to the rough line. I would say give yourself half of the red ring inside the rough with an extra mile, because a great ball here to the right is going to most likely clip the rough, and that's going to be danger. If you have the possibility to play with the rock, or you have the possibility to play with a lower level Apocalypse, I would do that instead, to be able to move even further to the left and then go with more curl. Because once again, extra mile is a lower level accuracy club, which means a great ball will have a bigger effect than it would be, for an example, with the rock. Using a Titan ball here is not so much for its side spin obviously, but for its power. So if I would be able to change that ball to anything else, that would be a kingmaker, because then it gives me side spin 3 and it also gives me power 3, which helps me both with the drive and then the second shot. So if you do have the possibility to play with a kingmaker here, I would strongly recommend you to do so. We do want to get the ball just down there on the fairway. You could see my little player logo, whatever we can call it, is down there on the fairway, and we do want to just make sure that we're not getting into the rough on the left side in any form. And the reason you would go into the rough on the left would be if you're not using that enough side spin combined with curl, because the curl is going to help prevent the ball to bounce left on that very slopey fairway. So approximately half a ball to one ball of curl, whatever you feel comfortable with, would be something that you do need to use. Second shot, here I would recommend a Guardian. Even though in a lower level you will have more backspin on the Guardian than you do have on many other clubs. And this is a very tough par 4 to get anything to drop, but if you're gonna have any sort of chance, the Guardian is going to be the club to play with. Sure, there is some tiny little rough bumps by the green that you can play with a sniper, but at the same time, do we really want to risk that, especially when we're playing in a 9-hole cup? Sure, maybe in a long-term tournament, the bigger tournaments where we do have time to dial it in, but in this case here, we do want to use the backspin, go back end of the green, trying to aim for the ball to roll back towards the pin for a possible eagle. No elevation for the second shot, but if you get anything on hole number 8, then you're gonna be pretty much alone on that, because that shot on a par 4 is one of the tougher par 4 second shots there is in the whole game. For hole number 9, we're going to start by playing with the quarterback. We do want to lay up very close to the end of the fairway here. So the closer we are to the rough, the better it's going to be. 3 bars of topspin, 1 bar side spin to the right. And here we do have a tailwind and a crosswind. I do want to recommend to play with the rock if you do have any form of headwind, because then you get more distance, but you keep the accuracy, you keep the ball guideline, which is going to help you tremendously. Maximum distance with a 10% over adjustment is what we're looking for here for the drive. You can also notice that I do play with a power 3 ball, and I would strongly recommend to keep yourself with minimum power 3 ball, as otherwise the second shot will be very difficult in terms of getting it to the position we want for the third shot. Yes, we cannot reach this green in 2, even though our opponent is going to give it a go here, it seems like, or maybe not now by using backspin. But if you do have an Apocalypse level 7+, you can technically bounce on the fairway into the rough and roll out on the other fairway, and then you have a power slice towards the pin. And sure, that's a possibility, I will have to say, but you will have to have wind that is above 11 miles per hour, and once again you do need to have the club, and that's going to obviously be very few players being able to play that type of shot here from the second tee. So now I do have the Cataclysm, and here I would go with the Cataclysm or the Horizon here, because I do want to have topspin, because we do want the ball to roll past all the trees that we do have on the right hand side. You can see the trees on the right side of the game screen. So we do adjust with no elevation accounted for, and then we're going to just try to transportate ourselves down the fairway. Obviously, a great left, great right doesn't really matter, as we do have an open fairway, and now you can see here now we have an open shot towards the pin. Third shot as well, to just talk about that a little bit, it's going to be with a short iron most of the times. That's at least what we're going towards. Sure, if you do have a very short second shot, or you might clip the rough in any form, then you will have a long iron towards the pin. Short iron to choose between is going to be the Thorn, the Hornet, or the Falcon. Those 3 are the ones that I'm choosing between, but you know me, I'm playing with the Thorn if I do have the possibility. Our opponent here is going to have a bit more distance due to a power 5 ball, and could technically push this ball a bit harder than what he is doing, meaning using a lot of curl and trying to get around the trees. But the best possible way there would be to get into a wedge situation, and honestly I would rather take a short iron before a wedge every single time, especially when the wedge is not going to be close to the green whatsoever. Third shot is going to be with no elevation, that one as well. And now it's very important that we try to measure the distance we do have towards the pin, which is going to be difficult as we do not have any yardage to go with after the second shot, which obviously makes a shot like this being harder to dial in. We do adjust here for whatever club distance we are measuring it at. So if you're measuring it as medium distance, then you go medium distance, etc, etc. Obviously try to hit perfect ball, which otherwise is going to be, you know, if you have a great ball and you drop it, that's gonna be lucky, because then it means that you weren't good enough with your adjustment, and that is so unlucky, so close. But hole number 9 here, if you do get an eagle, you're going to have to be very happy and consider that one as a drop, because the majority of the players will not get an eagle here on hole number 9. Thank you so much everybody for watching this playthrough for Pro and Expert Division with various type of wind here for the Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup. Video here is sponsored by Golf Clash and Playdemic. And make sure that you do hit the thumbs up before you go. If you do want to get the best guides on the market, you go to patreon.com/golfclashtommy. You can also watch more guides completely free on golfclashtommy.com. In the end though, let's crush it, and a massive good luck in the Vineyard Acres 9-hole cup.